This is the second class on the Mamar of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak of blessed holy merit, that he said in the year 1942, Tavshin Beit. And the name of the Mamar, the name of this Chassidic discourse is Vayita Eshel Be'er Sheva, that Abraham made an Eshel, which was alternatively, or it was both a orchard or a inn, a hotel in Beersheba. Vayikra Hashem b'Shem Hashem, and Abraham called there the name of God Kael Olam. God called God the God world. El Olam. We don't say El, we say Kael. So yesterday we began this Mamar with several questions that the Rebbe asks. Why does it say, why is it so important that tell us the place? And also, why is it important to tell us that there he called on the name of God? Didn't Abraham always call on the name of God? And Abraham traveled around a lot. Also, he traveled around a lot. That was one of his main accomplishments, that wherever he went, no matter what situation he was in, he always was calling the name of God. He was advertising to the world that there's a creator and the creator cares. So why does it say here that he made an inn in Beersheba? Beersheba is one particular place, it's a city. If it's the same place as it was back then, this is the city in the southern part of Israel. So it seems from here that Abraham called the name of God only in Beersheba. And what's it got to do with this Eshel that he made? He made some sort of an orchard. So the Rebbe said yesterday that the Jewish people are like a well. A well springs up from the earth. Even though water is found in great plenty in the ocean, but when it's in the ocean, it's salty. Usually can't be used for drinking. But when it comes under the ground and pushes its way up through the ground, it becomes purified. So it is also the Jewish soul is like a well that pushes itself up through the physicality of this world and becomes purified. Especially you can see this every day when we say Shema Yisrael. Now saying Shema Yisrael is a commandment in Judaism. You're supposed to say Shema Yisrael twice. What does it mean you're supposed to say it? It's a sentence in the Bible. It's a sentence in the Bible, in the book of Deuteronomy, in Et Hanan. It's a sentence, and it says, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Jews, God is our God, God is one. And you're supposed to say that. So what do you get out of saying that? So we say that. You say whatever, well, say whatever you want to, God. So he says, no. Saying Shema Yisrael is supposed to be accompanied by a certain genuineness, a genuine feeling. What does this mean? What does it mean, Shema Yisrael? Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. It's like you say the Pledge of Allegiance to America. Right? A lot of people in America, they want to take out the name of God because they don't believe in God. Right? You got a point. You have a point. If the guy doesn't believe in God, why should he say God? He says, no, maybe if you say one nation under God, at least you're in the right direction. At least you're saying, and then maybe that'll bring you to realize that America is under God. Other people saying, what are you talking about? There's no such thing as God. Big argument. The same thing with Shema Yisrael. With Shema Yisrael, we're declaring a truth. But some people don't believe in the truth. They don't believe in this. So what are you supposed to do? It says the Rebbe, that who are these people that don't believe in God? Who are these people? It's everyone that's reading this mimer. Every single Jew. Down deep, every Jew believes in God. But to bring it into your personal life, to bring it into your heart, to bring it into your emotions, it's an effort. You have to come through the ground like a well. You have like a spring. It's to come through. It's not an automatic thing, because I was excited about God yesterday and I realized the greatness of God and the goodness of God and how God creates me and how there's nothing except for God, yesterday is automatically, it's going to happen today. It doesn't work that way. A person is constantly reminded of his own existence and is constantly convinced, his own existence convinces him that that's all there is. That's all there is, just me. What was before me? I don't know, my parents, who cares? But there's a voice inside of every single human being, including every single Jew, including every single Chassid. That's why we're reading this mimer, that's saying, between me and you, there's no such thing as God. Really, between me and you. Maybe you have a feeling, huh? Yeah, there's one voice that says, no, it's not so. You're just a creation. You're being created every second. But there's a feeling which is more certain and more, upfront and obvious, that it's not so. It's an idea. It's a nice idea. It's a good religious idea. One day you'll die. Who knows what's going to happen? So it's worthwhile to put the investment in now. Just maybe Bitcoin will go up. Maybe Judaism will go up. After you die, you don't know. Maybe they're right. But we're talking about feeling right now, feeling the goodness, the reality, the uniqueness, the onlyness of God. All there is really God. That's all there really is. And God is creating everything. Do we feel that? No. So we have to try to feel it. How do you feel it? By thinking. That's this wellspring that comes out. And we're going to understand that's what Abraham tried to get everybody in the world to do. And he's still trying to this day. To this day. That everyone should feel the truth. It's not, the Wizard of Oz is sitting behind some curtain and he's trying to fool everybody. Believe in God. The fact is that God really is the creator. He creates time. He creates space. He creates all being. Right now. Right now is just a concept of ours right now. Everything is really a creation of God. There's no time, past, present, and future. By God, it's all really one. To us, it seems like it's unfolding. It's like there's people who watch movies. We had this. Some people who watch movies. They find a certain movie that they like, and they watch it like 300 times. So they watch some war movie or some gangster movie, and they watch it 300 times. They know what's going to happen. It's already in the reel or whatever it is. It's already there, so they know what's going to be. But nevertheless, it's exciting. As it unfolds, it's really exciting. It's the same thing. Something like that. Is by Hashem. By Hashem. Every time by God is really past, present, and future is always already one. How can it be already one? It doesn't make any sense. Past is past and future is future. It's not the same thing. But the fact is it's really all one. Do we know this? We feel it? No. It says it in the Mimer? Yes, it's true. If the Rebbe says it, it probably is not lying. He's not trying to fool us. It could be true. There's definite could be true. If it is true, what does it mean? I don't know. Well, think about it. That's what the Rebbe says. Think about it. Contemplate a little bit. It says that's called Hidbonanut. Shema Yisrael. By thinking into Shema Yisrael. Kamo she'omar Rabbeinu Nishmas Eden. Like the first Rebbe of Chabad said. The one who wrote the Tanya. See where we are? The first word in line is Shema. It's like 12 lines down from the top of the page. From the top of this mimer. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. The first of the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, the first Chabad Rebbe said, Shema Yisrael. What does the word Shema Yisrael mean? Shema hu milashon havana. Shema. Listen. Right? Are you listening to? Do you hear what I say? Hear means to understand. Hainu sheyidbonen. I'm sorry. Yeah?
The head.
Right, how did I get to this? 1 second. Oh, yes. Oh, good. I skipped the line. Sorry, my finger slipped down. Shema Yisrael. A Yid, a Jew, their heart feels Havayel Elokeinu, that Hashem, Yudke Vavke, the essence name of God, which is above time, above space, above all creation, Elokeinu is our God. What does it mean, our God? He is our life, our energy. As kol chayotena, that all of our life, Kol kochenu, and all of our power is Havaya, is God. Unser Leben, our life, unser Kraft, and our power. In other words, the thing that keeps us alive, the ability to see, the ability to hear, the ability to move, is from Hashem, is from God. Yud Kei Vav Kei. Personal. And where is this God? Unhavaya echad, and God is one. God is everywhere. God is everywhere, and God creates everywhere. So the personal-wise, right? Where is my energy? Where's my life coming from? What's keeping me alive? What's keeping me moving? That's God. And where is God? God is everywhere. In other words, not only is God keeping me alive, He's creating me. He's creating all being. That's what it means, Shema Yisrael. Listen, Jews. Understand. Zeu Shema Yisrael. The Shema is Lashon Havana. Shema means to understand. Hainu she'id bonen. That you will contemplate. Eich, how it is, Shavaya Elokeinu, that God is our God, and Havaya Echad, and that God is one. The Itva Bekisve Arizal, like it says in the writings of the Arizal, the Arizal is Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the foremost of the Kabbalists. He lived about 400 years ago. And he explained the ideas of the Zohar and Sefer Yetzirah in a way that nobody else did. There were a lot of other Kabbalists. There was Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, called the Ramak, and there was a Sefer of Bahir, and there was many books that are written about Kabbalah. But the Arizal, in a way, made it sort of popular. Kabbalah, even though it's very difficult to understand what he says, and Chassidut comes to make it practical, but he still did make the ideas of Kabbalah accessible, if not understandable, even though not understandable, at least accessible to everyone. To the point where if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, the Book of Law, there's a lot of times that they bring down laws, but the Arizal used to do this, and the Arizal used to do that. According to Kabbalah, right, do this. Where you put the Chanukah menorah, and where this. Shehavaya Elokeinu, that God, Hu Yichud Chachma Babina, that it says over there that these names of God, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, these are two different names of God. Different names of God. Why does God have different names? Because God has different aspects. Very, very important. If a person does not believe that God has different aspects, that God has a personality, this is what brings to idolatry. Why? Because if you say that God doesn't have any aspects, facets, personality, God doesn't interact with the world, then what does interact with the world, right? I need money, I need health, I need success, I need something. Pray to God. It's a commandment to pray to God. It's a commandment. Commandment in the Torah, that whenever you need, commandment midraisa, whenever you need something, you're supposed to pray to God. You're supposed to pray to God. You're going to, listen, if God is so far away, God is so infinite that He doesn't answer. So what's my point in praying to Him? Just I should accept whatever God gives. I'm supposed to try to change God. So therefore He says, no, you know what? I have a friend, and he had the same disease, and he prayed to the sun. He prayed to the moon, and he got healed. Right? And I know somebody else that he needed money, and he prayed to the frog god. And look at this mansion the guy has now. Mansion, incredible. And that's what it used to be. And people would succeed. They would actually pray to these different creations and animals and people and powers and stars and forces, and they would succeed and would work. And they had big temples and they had big this, and they were successful. And the Jews saying, listen, my God doesn't even answer. At least their God's answer. So maybe it's right. It says, no, it's not so. The fact is that God has a personality, and that God listens to prayers. And that God listens to prayers in different ways. There's God's severity, that's one name of God. According to God's different aspects, that's the different names of God. And there's one place that there's this beautiful mimer in Derech Mitzvotecha by the Tzemach Tzedek about prayer. about what exactly is prayer. What exactly do we do? It's a commandment from the Torah. What exactly are we? And in one place it says you have to pray to God like a child. In another place it says no. The reason you have to pray to God and know all of God's names and all of God's aspects, and that's why you're not answered, because you don't know His names. And he discusses the difference between them. In any case, in the writings of the Arizal, it talks about two facets of God. And we mention these when we say Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem is Chachma, Elokeinu is Bina. Yichud, uniting them, Chachma and Bina. This is when we say Baruch Atah Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokeinu. That's uniting Chachma and Bina. What does that mean? Uniting Ayin V'yesh. It's uniting what's called Ayin, the infinite, V'yesh, and the finite. Ayin can translate as nothing. It's nothing. Why? Because God is not a thing. Nothing. God is infinite. This aspect of God that He's infinite, that there's no boundaries, no definition, that's ayin. That's nothing. That's not a thing. You can't define what God is. That's chachma. In the human personality, chachma translates as faith, emuna. When we're relating to God, we're talking about faith, emuna. If we're talking about regular things in the world, it's like an idea, a concept. Faith in God, in other words, connecting to the God, how God is totally above understanding, that's what's called chachma. A feeling, an inexplainable, incomprehensible feeling, that's chachma. It's above bina. Bina is understanding, so something that's above understanding. And bina means that God comes into your understanding. God becomes more relevant to you, more personal to you. This is, again, the antidote to idolatry. By saying that God is infinite, right? Non-Jews also believe that God is infinite. But by saying that God can come into understanding in some small way, that God can be relevant to our understanding, our day-to-day life, this already starts to get you excited. This you can get excited about. You could say, God is really good. God is infinitely big. God really creates me. God cares. God listens. God has a purpose. God has a plan. But everything that happens is part of this plan. You start to understand. It starts to become personal to you. Now I understand what's going on. Shehu yichud to ayin v'yesh. It's uniting nothingness and somethingness. And there's uniting what's above understanding with what is understandable. Shechachma, the Rebbe will explain. Chachma, this aspect of chachma in our soul, nikra ayin, is called ayin. This aspect of God, also that's called chachma, is called ayin. Like it says, chachma me'ayin temotzeh. Chachma comes from nowhere. This is a sentence in Job. Job, you ever read the book of Job? Beautiful book. Job is praising God. He's praising God. God does these terrible things to Job. That's how the book starts off. And people come, his friends come to him and say, listen, Job, leave God. Don't you understand? It's not working out. Just deny that God exists. And if He does exist, you can see how cruel He is. He's doing. So Job says, what are you talking about, God? You have understanding what God is. You know what God feeds all the birds. He makes the sun come up in the morning. You can do this? What are you talking about? Chachma, wisdom, me'ayin temotzeh. From where does it come? But this is also translated as chachma comes from ayin, comes from nowhere. Ubina, but bina, nikra is called yesh. Bina is called something. Kamosh Gutuv, like it says, lahanchil ohavi yesh, to inherit those who love me, yesh. Yesh means something. The world to come is called yesh. Heaven, these are concrete feelings, understanding. Tam adavar, the reason is lama nikra chachma ayin. Why is chachma called nothing? It's sort of not nice. I mean, what are you calling God nothing? Hine yedu, it's known, sheyesh beit madregos histalshlus. There's beit madregos. There's two levels of creation. Hishtalshalut ulomaylam hishtalshalut. There's what's called the chain of creation and what is above the chain of creation. Let's just take this. Let's just take a small explanation here. According to Judaism, God created the world as of this class 5,779 and a half years ago. Almost a half. When Pesach comes, it'll be a half. 5,779 years ago, God created the world. Before God created the world, there was no world. Before He created the world, there was no time, there was no space, there was no vacuum, there was no spirit, there was no spirituality. What was there? I don't know, but there wasn't any world. Maybe there was like a space. Said no space. Spirit. What about the upper spiritual world? Not. All that's creations. And so we said the name of God, Yud, and then Hey, Vav, Hey, we learned in the last mimer, means the creator. He creates everything. Creates everything. All the spiritual worlds, all the physical worlds, all these different levels. They're all just creations. The whole thing is called the chain of creation. From the spiritual to the physical. Chain of creation. That's what we believe. This is, of course, faith. Nobody was there, no one saw it. This is what it was. This is how it was. On the other hand, it says like the Greeks, their philosophy was, and it still is, it's acceptable today, that there always was something. There always was something. There was always a spirit, or there was always black holes, or there was a form, or there was a primal matter, or there was some primal being, or some sort of a koach hiuli, what's it called? There was always something. Okay, so this is Jewish faith. Faith that 5,700 and whatever years ago, there was absolutely nothing. So if there was nothing, then how did God create it? So the answer is God is not a thing. God is not a thing. We have absolutely no idea what reality is. The reality that we're perceiving is so watered down and so, covered by confusion and falseness, and God wants this to be this way purposely. That's what's called Seder Hishtalshlut, the order of creation. So a little tiny bit of truth seeps into this world, a little tiny bit, and it's found in the Torah. It's found in the Torah. If a person goes away from the Torah, he can succeed wonderfully in this world. We see that's what happened to all the Romans and the Babylonians and these people. And the Jews as well. Reform, conservative, all these things. You can succeed wonderfully. It's a terrible test. But nevertheless, that is the truth. What are you supposed to do now? It says, let's define what we're talking about here. God is defined as ayin. All creation is defined as yesh. Hishtalshlut, there's what's called above the world, above creation, before the creation, and the creation. Hishtalshalut means the chain of creation. Hishtalshalut, the creation of the world. Hi ma shaba b'derech yesh miyesh. One thing comes from another. One spiritual level comes from it a lower spiritual level. Kamo, let's take it for instance in ourselves. A human being, and it says a very interesting sentence in the Bible, right in the beginning, that God created man in God's image. God does not have an image. Very basic principle of Judaism, God does not have an image. But you're right, God in his essence did not have an image. Of course, if God existed before the world, so there's no form, God has no, you can't define him at all, there's nothing to relate him to. God created the world from nothing. So it really means the world is really made from nothing. So what is God? God is the master of nothing.
From nothing comes something.
So how does this nothing come to something? So the answer is it's exactly sort of the opposite of what we think. God is really the real something. And in order to create the world, so he hides over his real somethingness, his real existence, and he creates what's called the world. So the world is really infinitely far away from God. Right? That's what you think until the end comes. Final. The last step of the world is us. And here in this lowest of the lowest the lowest incomprehensible lowness of this world and lie and deception, that how this world seems to be real, how unreal the world really is, and how we're really fooling ourselves. But the fact is that in this world, God put the Torah. And that's exactly what God wants, that we should take this tremendously non-real world and make it real. Impossible task. Impossible. Cannot be done alone. But if you have God helping you, then it not only it can be done, it will be done. It must be done. Must be done and will be done. We have the power to do it. That's the first person to realize this was Abraham. That's the two levels of Chachma and Bina. Why is Chachma called Ayin? Because there's what's called creation and above creation. Hishtalshlut, the level of creation, is what comes yesh miyesh. One thing comes from another thing. Kamo seichel or midas. For instance, in a human being, there is intellect and emotions. And then there is thought, speech, and action. First of all, a person has an idea. Then he thinks about it. Is it really real? And he gets excited. Then he gets excited about it. He thinks about it. Then he talks about it. And then finally it comes into action. Shehamida, that the emotion, shenolda, believe, that is born in your heart, eino davar chadash, is not something brand new. Ella, mitchila, in the beginning, hayata kalula, it was included. Your emotion was included, behelam, in your seichel, in your mind. Right? Advertising. What's advertising? You all of a sudden you're driving down the road, you see a big advertisement, right? Buy a Harley Davidson motorcycle. You drive by, and all of a sudden you think, "Wow, that's a really, that's really nice." Harley Davidson. Your wife says, "What's nice?" Nothing. I don't know. Listen. All of a sudden there's another advertisement, right? And there you see there's this guy riding on a Harley motorcycle, and his beard is flowing in the wind, right? And he's got this big smile on his face. And he's saying, "Harley, make you feel young again." And you say, "Yeah, man, I feel young again. That would really be nice to feel young again." Right. Corvette is more expensive, I think. And here you're just like, you're not really wild in a Corvette. He drives a little bit further and says, "Now what's happening? All the idea is getting into his mind. He's getting the idea as this picture in his mind." And the next stop they make at the gas station, he buys this sort of red scarf, he puts it around his neck. His wife said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Nah, that's just nothing, He said, all of a sudden the idea is starting to get into his emotions. Wow, I like that. I really think this is good. And from his emotions, it starts getting into his thoughts. And from his thoughts, he starts talking about it. And then finally gets into action. He calls up his wife, says, "Who are you calling up?" Making a stop. "Who are you calling up?" "Listen, about how much would a Harley cost?" His wife says, "I don't believe you're really doing this." He says, "Oh yeah, no, it's nothing. I'll talk to you later." Right? And little by little, he starts to, right? That's the whole world of advertising. To put something into your mind, it's not even in your thoughts yet. You're not even really actively thinking about it. You just saw it. In America, for instance, it's forbidden to have an advertisement of someone smoking a cigarette. Because people see smoking a cigarette and they know it's bad, and there's big signs on it's bad for your health, it's bad. But they see it, and it gets into their mind, and from their mind, it creeps somehow or other into their emotion. I am feeling a little bit sort of uneasy, a little bit depressed, and I saw that picture, and this guy was like really smiling. He had this thing on his mouth. He was really happy. He was really smiling. I'd like to smile like that. And he's not even thinking. All of a sudden, he starts to think about it. And from the thinking, it comes into his, right? First of all, he had it in his mind, then his emotions. Then he starts to actually think about it. And then after that, right, he has this picture in his mind. Instead of that guy sitting there, John Wayne or whatever, with the thing on his nose, sitting on a horse, he has this picture that he's sitting there, sitting behind his computer with a cigarette dangling. And then he starts to smoke. His wife said, "What are you doing?" "I don't believe it." Says, I don't know. I can't explain it. It was that smile that he saw. It was that thing that he saw. It has an effect on his mind. Says the Rebbe, and that's in a not good way. What about a good way? A person has a thought. The thought develops into emotion. The emotion then develops into, as an idea. An idea develops into an emotion, and the emotion develops into thought, speech, and action. Says the Rebbe, it's the same thing by God. By God, he has what's called an idea. This idea is the idea of creating the world. And eventually this comes into God's emotions, and then finally into actual action. So let's see. Therefore, thoughts that you have in your mind were included, first of all, in your emotions, and your emotions are also not anything good, new. That was included in your ideas. And afterwards, yotze legilu believe, and afterwards these ideas come in a revealed way into your heart. But it's not a new thing. Your emotions are not new things. They always come as a result of some sort of an idea. And a lot of times these ideas can be concealed, and you don't know what exactly is motivating you, and etc. What's the goal in Chassidut? What is the goal? The goal is not to discover and to reveal your real motivations and your real, hang-ups and your neuroses and your psychoses and things like that.
I got a therapist for that.
Huh?
I got a therapist.
Right, says the Rebbe, think about something positive. Think about God. Because you have these negative thoughts and negative feelings, is because you're empty. Have a positive thought about God, and it could be that that'll be enough, unless sometimes people do really need doctors. But if you possibly can think of these positive ideas, it'll get rid of a million bad ideas. V'kein dibur, and also speaking from thought. Eino ela gilo yahelim. Words coming out of your thoughts is just revealing what was concealed in your mind. Asher otiot ela, that these letters, shehayu techila behelim, that were concealed in your thought, now come out into your speech. Usually people do not say things that they did not think about before. Usually then were not hidden in their mind. The calls that all this, Nikra, is called Hishtalshalut. This is called the chain of creation. From inside of ourselves we can see. We'll talk about God in a moment. Inside of ourselves we can see. A person gets an idea. The idea evolves into an emotion. The emotion evolves into thoughts. Thoughts evolve into speech, and speech evolves into action. Just like a shalshalut, like a chain. Shekal taba'at, that every link of the chain, achuzat bo zu bezu, each one is linked one in the other. Every link is connected to the one that's above it and the one below it. Which is not the case. Where do the ideas come from? From above ideas. Where do ideas come from? In our example that we gave, he's driving down the street and he sees a picture of this Harley motorcycle. Okay, that's the source of his ideas, right? That's the source of his ideas. But now let's talk about a person that's thinking about not such mundane things, right? The first person who had this idea of making a Harley Davidson motorcycle, let's take the example. Where did this idea come from? Where did it come from? Right? He saw a person with a bicycle. He saw someone else with a motor. All of a sudden he gets this idea, maybe I can put these things together. Where did he get this from? Where did the idea, all of a sudden, why did nobody else have this idea? All of a sudden he gets the idea. The first person who had the idea to make a motor, right? Where did he get it from? In other words, original ideas. That's what we're talking about. Original ideas. Where do original ideas come from? Where's the source of original ideas? I don't know. The Greeks and people like that, they used to worship these things. Right? The source of inspiration comes from the essence of your soul. It's something like talent or conscience. These things just spring up suddenly from their soul. Where does it come from? Right? Even things like love. Where does this come from? All of a sudden you love something. Why does a person love this? He doesn't love this. Why? It comes from above his ideas. It comes from above his consciousness. Something creeps into his consciousness from above consciousness. Eino b'derech ishtalshlus. This does not come in a way of ishtalshlus. It doesn't come in a way of an orderly way. We'll take the example, like we said, conscience. Everybody's doing something and one person says, this is wrong. This is wrong thing to do. Where'd you get this? This is wrong. I don't know. I just feel that it's wrong. It's wrong to make abortions. I saw, somebody sent me a video of a doctor that used to perform abortions, and something happened to him in his own personal life. He had a child that died or whatever. And suddenly he thought, life is precious. How can I be killing? Now, there's all these other doctors that are taking babies, no problem. Right? And they're doing abortions. They have no problem whatsoever. And he all of a sudden thinks that something's wrong over here. I shouldn't do this. Where did this idea come? Right? The German guy, he's working in the concentration camps, killing people, and all of a sudden he says, what am I doing? Everyone else is doing it. Well, what's wrong with you? Right? What's wrong with you? Where does this idea, conscience, where does it come from? Right? Inspiration. Where does it come from? Where do these ideas come from? This is above the order of the normal order of creation. This does not come from a normal orderly place. Like ideas give birth to emotions. What gives birth to the ideas? Your soul itself. It's not relevant to say that idea that he suddenly gets, this is wrong. Shehu masig ata, that he gets now, hayata mitchila, that it was originally included somewhere above seichel. But what? It comes me'ayin liyesh mamish. It comes from nothing to something mamish. A brand new thing. That was one of the big, you want to call it the crimes of psychoanalysis and all these other psychiatrists and these people. Unfortunately, most of them were Jews also. That they tried to put God out of the picture. There's no such thing as anything coming from nothing. Everything comes from something. Everything that you do has an ulterior motive. There's no genuineness, genuine love that comes from your soul. No such thing. Everybody loves because there's some physical, you get some physical out of it, or you get some sort of a social status or something. There's no such thing as genuine inspiration, genuine genius. This Professor Viktor Frankl talks a lot about this. There's somebody that he took these great minds and he analyzed them. Why they're only expressing their Oedipus complex and their hatred of their mother and etc. Right? And it's true, you can analyze everything away and say everything is false and everything is just physical and we're basically just, monkeys and just have a good time.
Sounds like bad science.
Or you can say,
trying to make the facts, the data fit the hypothesis.
Or just seeing all there is what your eye sees, what you perceive. There's nothing called the soul. There's nothing really genuine that's above analysis. Right? Says the Rebbe that this is not so. That's why the Rebbe said that this Professor Viktor Frankl, that his system was a good one. Because he took into account this idea that there are aspects of the human personality that cannot be explained. They come from the essence of truth. They come from the essence of inspiration. They come from essence of beauty. Even so, it sounds a little like Plato, and those ideas, these forms, pure forms or whatever. But eventually a person can get to the idea from this. It's possible to get to the idea of the infinite one, creating everything from nothing. That's already faith. That's what we said. It's above understanding. V'kach yuvan l'mayla, so we can understand also by God. Shechachma is called reishish ishtalshlut. That chachma is called the beginning of the chain of creation. Where did the world come from? 5,790, whatever it is, 5,779 years ago. Where did it come from? So the answer is it came from nothingness. It came from nothingness. So a pure miracle. The world is made from nothing. If so, you think, one second, it means that this world is not made from atoms. It's not made from energy. It's not made from spirit. What's it made from? It's made from nothing. So it means from nothing that everything is made from nothing. So the world, the basic building block of the world is nothings, a bunch of nothing. What, that doesn't make any sense. He says, that's it. That's the point. It doesn't make any sense. It's above us. It's above understanding. That's the beginning of Ishtalshalut. Hainu sha'chachma, that which is called chachma, and below, yesh lem shaychut ve'erech zeh lezeh. What is from chachma and below has a connection. Right? Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'aretz. That's where God started. The Torah starts off with the letter base to know that that's only step number 2. What was step number 1? You can't understand. Interestingly, the first word of the 10 Commandments is the Aleph. That shows that the Torah preceded the world. That which Chachma comes into existence. This first beginning came from Or Ein Sof, from God Himself. This is not in a way of cause and effect at all. Or Ein Sof is above Migeder Mahut Chachma. This aspect of Chachma, we said, is ayin, is nothingness. Why? Because that's what I call it, the top part of Chachma. The top part of Chachma is connected to godliness. It's like a plug you put into the wall, right? Plug you put into the wall. The inside of the plug is connected to the electricity. The outside is connected to this light bulb, right? Electricity is not a light bulb. A light bulb is activated by electricity. It's not electricity. The connector is the plug. That's what Chachma is. Chachma is the plug. In human personality, it's called faith, emunah. Faith is what connects you to what's above you. It connects reality to what's above reality, the creator of reality. That's this aspect of Chachma. That's the Chachma. Where does Chachma come from? It comes from ayin. Right? The same thing saying, where do ideas of your conscience come from? I don't know, your soul, they just come. Where do they come? Like it says in Tikkun Zohar. Like it says in the book Tikkun Zohar, which is 70 different explanations of the word Bereshit. Ant hu chad v'lo b'chushman. You are one. This we read every Erev Shabbat. It's the introduction to this book called the Tikkun Zohar. Ant hu chad, God, you are one. V'lo b'chushban, but you cannot be counted. It's not a numerical one. Okay, Herschel. She'en lo erech kalal, that it has no comparison to anything at all. You, God, your oneness is not compared to anything at all. V'leit machshava tefisa be'klal. There is no thought, even the thoughts of the angels cannot grasp in you at all. Shafilu chachmi Eloah, that even this aspect of the upper wisdom of God, chachma of the world of Atzilut, the highest level of this whole order of creation, Eino Maseget, cannot in any way grasp or contain or even approach Mahut, the essence of Or Ein Sof. Loch, and therefore, Hine, behold, Kadei, in order, Shehi Tava Sfirat HaChachma, in order to create this first beginning of creation, which is called Chachma, this is by means of, how does God do it? If God is infinite, and before, in essence of God, there's no time, there's no space, how does He create this thing? This is called Chachma, which is like the plug. It's the beginning of creation. How can God begin the creation? You have to begin from something. Well, there had to be something before. And we're saying God is not a thing. God is not, His existence is infinitely infinite. Says the Rebbe, that's by what's called a tzimtzum. A tzimtzum is a very miraculous thing, and it's explained in great length in the writings of the Arizal, and that was really one of the big arguments between the Chassidim and what we call the opposers of the Chassidim, the Mitnagdim. And one time the leader of the Mitnagdim, of the people who opposed Chassidut, that was the Gaon of Vilna, the Rabbi Elijah of Vilna, called the Vilna Gaon. He called the Gaon of Vilna. He was a tremendous genius, and he knew everything that was in the Torah, and he was also a tremendous genius in Kabbalah. And someone told me, I learned in Bnei Brak for a long time, that he wrote more books on Kabbalah than he wrote on Nigla. I have one of his books on Sefer de Tzniuta. I have in my home. But in any case, he had his own way of explaining this idea of tzimtzum. What it means that God contracted himself. And it comes out that becomes the inner point of the argument between the Chassidim and the Mitnagdim. It's a very, very deep idea. But this idea of the tzimtzum means that God somehow or other contracted himself. Right? Wrong. The Gaon of Vilna said that's what happened. God contracted himself. He removed himself. And the first Rebbe of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe that set the whole tone of Chassidut Chabad, he received from his teachers, the Maggid of Mezrich and the Baal Shem Tov, and these are not things to be taken in a simple way. I mean, the Gaon of Vilna was a tremendously holy and sincere and genius person. So it wasn't some sort of a mistake, that he that we can relate to in any way. But nevertheless, according to Chabad, this is not the way to look at the world. God did not remove himself. God did not remove his light. God hid over his light. We'll talk about what this means. One of the pupils of the Gaon of Vilna was called Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, and he said he also wrote books on Kabbalah, and he said that he disagreed with his teacher, with the Gaon of Vilna. He said God did not contract himself, God contracted his light. And the first Rebbe of Chabad said God did not contract himself and not his light, but rather he hid over his light. What this means we'll talk about in the next class. But nevertheless, the way that God made the world, 5,999 years, that's when time began. It's just the wind. Time began. How did God begin time? With this thing called the tzimtzum, the contraction. Somehow or other, God made this thing called yesh. He made this thing called limit, world, order. Before that, there was no world, there was no order. It was infinitely more real than that. There was no... I'll give you just a simple example, right here. This key, right? Is this key real? Yes, but it's a very, very limited, very weak reality. What does that mean? Look, first of all, the key is only here. It's not here. Right? It's a very limited key. Also, this key, it's only one color. It's black. It's not any other color, right? And it's made of two things. It's made of plastic, and it's not made of any other materials. So you see, it's tremendously, tremendously limited in space, also in nature, also in time. This key did not exist 30 years ago. It probably won't exist another 30 years, 50 years. It won't exist, right? So if so, in time and in space and in quality, it's very small. If you wanted to make a real key, so the key would be infinite key. Infinite. There was no place that this key does not exist.
Like the Torah.
Right? This key, right? And there would be no quality that this key does not have. Then it would lose its identity. It wouldn't be a key anymore. The whole idea of definition depends on limitation. And limitation, by its own definition, is not real reality. It's a very limited, small, weak, diluted reality that's limited only to certain qualities in a certain place and a certain time.
Like a key, because you wouldn't be able to open a lock if you
lose that key and see how small
the way it is.
Listen, that's the way that God made the world. That's the whole idea of the Torah. Right? The Torah puts meaning into limit. So this key by itself is just a very small thing. But the key, yes, has the ability to open up a car, a door, and then the car you can drive to places, you can do things. So the key holds in it. I think that's one of the reasons that children, I don't know if you get anything else out of this class, but little babies love keys. If you ever go into a show or something, little babies make noise, all you have to do is take keys and put it in front of them like this, right? Children that are 1 year old, even less, 1-year-old, and they're fascinated by keys. Right? By keys, they're fascinated. By other things, plastic and all this stuff, the people, they're not. But keys, they're changed, and you can see that there's something hidden there. There's some sort of it's by design. It's designed for something else, right? It's not just, doesn't exist just for itself. Children like keys. The whole world, the Torah comes to show that the whole world is really like a key. The whole world is to open up something else. It's for a deeper meaning. As God willing, we'll learn tomorrow.